But today, the Carolina Panthers, in need of a quarterback, because Darnold's out 6 to 8, but it feels more like 8 to 10, they hit the refresh button. And they bring back in Cam Newton. So Cam Newton will be a quarterback, and we assume probably after this weekend, right? Like, are you going to get him up and running, and it's a Thursday? We can assume that Cam Newton will be the starting quarterback next week, not this week when they take on the Arizona Cardinals. So Cam returns to the Panthers. And the devil is always in the details. Remember, he signed backup money at $3.5 million with the New England Patriots. This deal is a $4.5 million guaranteed deal. It's a little fuzzy in terms of what he's actually getting because 4.5 is guaranteed. There's a $1.5 million roster bonus. That would be $6 million. But I don't know if the 4.5 actually includes the 1.5 guarantee, which is actually what I believe to be the case. I'm not completely sure. I know what's being reported and what's being assumed, but everybody always assumes that teams, that guys are getting more and then teams want to pay less, when the truth is teams do pay less, and yes, guys always want more. So my guess is, like, there's not a ton of leverage power there for Cam Newton. Why would you're not overpaying him? And people say, well, that's starter money. Not really. Not really. You know, you can count on one hand starters in the NFL, not on a rookie contract, that are making less than $15 million. It's just the reality of it. So with that in mind, what do we expect? I think it's a great opportunity for Cam, but I also think that this is a little bit of a little bit of make good money, right? Like David Tepper's a new owner. David Tepper comes in, he cleans house. They get rid of Cam, and then they're kind of in desperate need, and there's not a ton of options out there, and they were going to run some read option anyway based upon what they had left. Why not Cam Newton? It's not a crazy idea, right? It's just not. But we've had so many people try and throw Cam Newton's name out into more kind of prestigious teams when they need a quarterback. I think this one makes sense. It feels like a behind the music. Do you guys remember the behind the music ones on VH1? You guys know the president of iHeart Audio is actually the guy who started that? You guys know that? That's a true story. Anyway, the old behind the music went something like this. There's a band that got together, right? They started playing in garages, small venues, and the hits started coming in. So did the drugs and the women and the drugs and the women and the drugs and the women, right? And there were egos over between the lead singer and maybe the bass player. The bass player actually wrote the songs, put together the band, but the lead singer, he wanted to go solo. And at some point in time, there was creative differences, and they broke apart. The lead singer went solo. His album at first was hot, and then missed his band. Meanwhile, guys in the band developed drug problems, went to other bands. It's never the same. Everybody hits a rock bottom. One or two of them are teaching music, and then they get the band back together. You know, these guys are going on a reunion tour, and the reunion tour is part happy because there were great times, part sad because those times were in the past. Here's one of the hits from our first album. That was 30 years ago. Right? That's what it feels like for Carolina. You're getting the band back together. Cam in a Panther uniform makes a whole hell of a lot of sense. Right? An absolute signature player who won the MVP and took them to their second Super Bowl. And you have Christian McCaffrey. At some point, he'll be healthy, who's the new shining star of this team. But, I mean, it's truly never the same. We can talk about the hits from 2016. You know, we can talk about the time that Right Said Fred had "I'm too sexy for this shirt. So sexy it hurts." But Right Said Fred, when played on the radio, is now played in an oldie station. Remember when it was Right Said Fred? Or maybe on a Saturday show with Ryan Seacrest when he looks to the Wayback Machine back in 95 when it was a top hit. But now we look forward. Look, I'm not a Cam Newton hater. I'm just a Cam Newton realist. The guy suffered through a ton of injuries. He's taken a savage beating, some through how he plays, some through the fact that you can't protect a quarterback when he's outside of the pocket. And no one was outside the pocket more, until Lamar Jackson, than Cam Newton. And unlike Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton was unable to avoid all those hits, didn't want to avoid all those hits. He's a monster of a man, a monster of a personality. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to have him back in Carolina, but anybody thinks we're going to hit the Wayback Machine, he's going to start popping out hits and be the comeback player of the year. Yeah, I don't see it. He didn't throw for 100 yards 4 times last year. He couldn't make the New England Patriots. And while he has been vaccinated, so that's no longer an issue, I mean, like, look, this is actually the normal cycle of life. Sped up slightly because of how he played, but most quarterbacks get to a spot in their mid to late 30s where they have nothing left. Tom Brady is the exception. Cam Newton's more the rule. And when your shoulder goes, Drew Brees is the exception. Cam Newton's the rule. So just like getting band back together at the end of VH1's old Behind the Music shows is fun and good, and you say, hey, man, I'm going to go see Def Leppard play. You know the drummer only has one arm. The truth is, that concert will come and go, and unless you're just a flat-out groupie, you can be a guy groupie, doesn't mean that you want to do extra tricks in the trailer, right? Unless you're super, super in or you plan right away. Like, hey, Def Leppard's playing over at the fairgrounds. Like, I do want to see the one-armed drummer. But my kid's got soccer all day, and my buddy's watching the UFC fight this Saturday night. I think I'm going to rain check it. Right? A lot of those comeback tours, smaller venues, not the same juice, almost a little bit sad. Yes, Jason Stewart.
My favorite part of the Behind the Music is always like this thing where you knew that the band's PR machine was like, hey, we need to mention the new music, right?
Yeah.
And they had the lead singer like, you know what? We're all sober and our music's better than ever. Yeah. And it's like, really? Because I don't remember a good song from you in the last 20 years. So obviously it's not better than ever.
I like that. We're all sober now and we're getting together and we're writing Christian rock.
And we need money. Yes. That's what they don't say.
Yes. So we're opening for the opening act, and we're going to be outside while they're inside the venue, but it's still a big thing. Look, I'm not taking shots at one-hit wonders or old-school bands, right? To be on top of the music world even once is a magnificent thing. But I watched enough VH1 Behind the Music to know that getting the band back together can be a short-lived deal and can be a little bit of a letdown. And I'm not telling you I'm a Cam hater. He's never been a crazy accurate thrower, with the exception of his last year in Carolina where everything was dink and dunk. And that's probably what he's going to have to do here. And he'll throw it a bunch to Christian McCaffrey if Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy. And it makes sense for Carolina, who's looking around going like, hey, the Saints aren't great. The Buccaneers can be beaten. Atlanta's whatever. I don't know. Like, let's see where we can go with this thing, even though we haven't played well as of late. We can still make a little push at the playoffs, and, having Cam Newton around probably sells some extra tickets until we get to that point.